Hey guys! Welcome to this week's review of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 2, Episode 12, I believe. Review. So let's just get right into it. So, Jen and Heather end up meeting for lunch, right? I believe Jen tried to reach out to Lisa, but Lisa, along with majority of the other ladies, are not really feeling Jen right now. And honestly, I don't really think it has anything to do with Jen and her legal troubles. I think it more so has to do with Jen and how she treats other people, to be honest, right? So she's kind of like, oh, well, when when I'm free of these charges and I'm proven innocent, they're gonna look stupid. It's not really about that. I think once you treat people like crap, once you go through something, it's really hard for them to want to go out of their way to support you, right? It's almost like an excuse to sort of let you go. Like, oh, well, she's crooked. I'm not going to risk my reputation to hang out with her or give her any sort of attention. You know what I mean? Because she wasn't really a nice person to anybody to begin with. So it's like you yell, you scream, you curse at people, you treat them like crap, and then once you go through something, you want them to have sympathy and empathy for you, but that's not the way you conducted yourself with other people. So it's just like I, I can take a lot of different characters when it comes to reality television. Like I said, I don't have to like someone to recognize that they are good for the show. However, when it comes to Jen, I don't even think she should be on the show. She's not even. She may have her moments, but she's not even entertaining to watch because I feel like she's so unhinged, right? And I feel like now she's trying to play the victim, like, oh, no one has my back, when it's not that at all. It's your behavior. You know what I mean? So, of course, Heather is the only one there for her. I low key, and I can be entirely wrong, but I feel like part of the reason that Heather is there for her right now is because Heather wants a bit of camera time, right? And she knows that nobody else is going to film with her. She's the only one, so she might as well get the scene in. Because the way that Jen has treated Heather last season and the beginning of this season, I just find it really, I don't know, I find it really hard to believe that Heather wants to still be friends with Jen. Now, just because I don't believe it or it doesn't make sense to me doesn't mean that there's not something genuine going on with Heather and Jen. Fine, but it's just really strange to me, and I feel like a more likely explanation is that Heather wants her camera time. Heather, this is a job, so she's going to do what she has to do. And if the producers say go meet with Jen, she's going to go and meet with Jen, right? So Jen is kind of relaying the story of how she got arrested. And I will admit this, right? That episode where she did, well, we didn't get to see her get arrested on camera, right? But that scene where they showed the police officers at her home, I was too caught up in the kiki of the moment and like, oh my gosh, a housewife is getting arrested on film potentially, oh my gosh, that I wasn't really thinking about the implications of the police officers, well, I don't know, police officers, SWAT team coming to her home, knocking at her door, and like having her children, and I believe her nephew, being escorted out the home with guns and everything. And when she was relaying the story, I was like, you know what? Damn, she is right. Like, that must have been really traumatizing for her son and her nephew. And even when I was watching that scene, I was like, even back then, I was wondering, okay, it's not like Jen committed a violent crime, right? Allegedly. She's being charged for like a fraud or whatever, right? It's not, of course, there are still victims. I'm not trying to minimize what she and her business partner or assistant allegedly may have done. I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not a violent crime. Now, I couldn't 100% with confidence say that Jen is not a violent person because we've seen how she acts and goes down, but I don't think she would have been a threat, you know, to police officers. So I don't understand why all the hoopla, why so many officers showed up, why they had the guns and out and everything like that. You know what I mean? It's not like there was about to be a shootout, right? So that was really extra and unnecessary. Like I don't know. And who knows, there could be more to the story, but from what I'm seeing, it really doesn't make sense, and that is really, really shady. Okay, really, really shady. I'll just say that that's super duper shady because they didn't need to do all that. Now, was Jen trying to flee the scene? I don't know, but they definitely didn't need to do all that for sure. And I definitely feel sorry for her children because they have absolutely nothing to do with this, right? They're children. They're just living their life, and you're at home chilling, minding your own business, right? Your home is supposed to be where you feel the safest. And then you get a knock on your door, and there's a bunch of officers with like rifles. Like, that's super scary and crazy to me. And we all know that just because you're in your home doesn't mean you're safe. If the officers want to come in and make a scene or do whatever, then they can do that. And there's nothing you can really do. And Jen was right. Like, if her son maybe moved the wrong way or talked back, which would be normal, right? Like, you're confused, like, why are you here, right? It would be normal for you to talk back and be like, what's going on, right? But then, as we know, that kind of motion or attitude or behavior can be interpreted as hostile, and then they can use that as an excuse to do whatever. So I'm really, thankfully, nothing happened, and everybody was safe. But like I said, that's just really, 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 really effed up. Moving on from that, Jen was talking more about her experience, right? And she was talking about Stuart, right? When she was arrested, she saw Stuart was also arrested and he said sorry to her. And she's kind of low key trying to minimize her involvement with Stuart, right? Because we're introduced to Stuart as that's her assistant, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, he was my assistant, but he's more so a close family friend. I have no clue what's going on with him and what he's doing and da 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 da, right? That that is also very shady and is also very convenient because literally a couple of episodes before you guys were bosom buddies and real real close. So now all of a sudden you don't know what's going on and you don't know what he's doing. That's a little weird. I did read that Stuart took a plea deal. So to be honest, I have not been really keeping up with Jen and the whole legal thing. I truly haven't. But the last I've read, Stuart took a plea deal. And if he took a plea deal, part of that deal could have been to, well, rat Jen out, right? And expose. Usually you get a deal if you're gonna, bring in a bigger catch, right? Which would be Jen. If Jen is supposed to be, if that's her assistant, then I'm assuming Jen is the leader of the operation or something of the sort. So that I don't know. I don't know how that's going to unfold for her, you know? Um, we'll see. One thing I will say, when Jen is upset and she's crying, she usually starts yelling and kind of does that high pitched voice. But in this scene, she was very calm. She was emotional, but she was very level headed and calm, kind of, considering what was going down. One more thing I want to say about this scene, Heather. Like, okay, I say this like every single review, I feel, right? And I'm gonna say it again. I do not, let me make this clear. I do not think Lisa is this innocent angel. Not at all, right? Lisa calling all them lawyers, that was messy, right? She was definitely fishing for some information, right? Which is kind of, I wouldn't say it's normal, especially with a camera there and you say this person is your friend. You wouldn't like do something like that, right? So I get that. But what the thing about Heather is like you want to say all the things that Lisa was saying and that Lisa was doing, but you won't speak on what Whitney was saying, right? You won't speak on what you were saying. So it's like you kind of want to put everything on Lisa to make it seem like she was the only one that was questioning Jen, right? And like I said, I understand the way that Lisa acted was extra, but she was not the only one on that bus. Like Whitney was very excited, right? And Whitney knew a lot of information, and Whitney was dishing a lot of crap. Now, I don't know if Heather didn't bother to bring up Whitney because Jen and Whitney are not even really close like that. But still, you know what I mean? And even Heather was, and I guess it was more so in her confessionals, but Heather was sort of hinting at not necessarily that Jen was engaging in criminal activity, but that her business was a bit sketchy. So all of y'all on that bus had doubts, right? But then when it comes to her face, you're kind of like, I don't know, you're just putting it on Lisa, which is funny because I feel like that's what you got mad at Lisa for doing when it came to Mary, right? Because and you know Heather is the common denominator on that too because she tried to make it look like Lisa was trying to pin everything on Whitney. So I don't know. I don't dislike Heather, but I don't think Heather is this. I guess Heather tries to have this good girl, innocent image, but Heather really will be, stirring up mess. And she really doesn't like Lisa, her and Whitney. And I think they really go out of their way to throw Lisa under the bus and not really acknowledge the messy stuff that they do, which I don't really like. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, I don't blame Heather for not like really giving the real tea about what Whitney was saying to Jen's face because we all know how Jen gets down. She would have freaked out. So we get a scene with Whitney and her husband. And as you guys know, Whitney is launching a beauty line. I believe it's called Wild Rose or something like that, something with rose in it, right? And she's speaking about how she's gone into debt launching the beauty line and how she spent most of her life savings, if not all of her life savings. I think she said they spent all of their life savings. That's crazy to me. And she's talking to her husband about taking out a loan, $1 million loan, and that her husband would have to co-sign. And that's super duper 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 crazy to me, right? Now, like, I know being on Housewives is a great opportunity to start a business, right? And to market your product. It is like, it's an international platform, right? Because, like, I'm Canadian, they're American. I guess that's international. It's a North American platform, right? Where you can market your stuff. And beauty is very popular. Women do like beauty. Men like beauty too. Um however, I don't know. I never launched a skincare line or I never launched any product of the sort. So I'm not an expert. I'm not one to talk. And you know what? I did give Wendy from Real Housewives of Potomac bit of a hard time for launching her little candle. I thought it was a bit okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was a bit silly, but to be fair, I'm not a candle person. I enjoy candles, but I wouldn't really go out of my way to buy a bunch of candles. Right? But there are lots of people that love candles and are obsessed with candles. So there is a market for it, right? So I did give her a little bit of hard time, but you know what? That was smart. It's smart to start off small, to test the market, to see what people are responding to, right? And I think, especially with Salt Lake City, it's a new franchise. This is the second season. I'm pretty sure it's going to get a third season. And I'm pretty sure that Whitney would be coming back for the third season, right? But still, it's all very tentative. You don't really know how things are going to go. So I do think it was a huge risk to just launch this full skincare line, right? Where your position, like, let's be real, the reason why you're launching it is because you're on this show, right? And most likely the reason why your product will sell is because you're on this show, right? So if you're not so stable or you're not really sure how your positioning is going to work out as a cast member, I would have been a little bit more tentative, right? I would have maybe released a moisturizer, maybe a toner, maybe like a tinted moisturizer, or I don't know, a mask or something, like start off with something small, test it out, see if people respond, and then slowly over time grow your brand and grow your line. I don't think it was very wise to like sink so much money into something that you're not sure is even going to work, right? Because the beauty industry is very competitive, very, very competitive. There's so many skincare lines, right? And makeup lines. Like, look at Lisa Rinna Beauty, right? And Lisa Rinna is a soap star for one, right? Even before the Housewives. And on top of that, Lisa Rinna has been on the Housewives for how many seasons now? And I don't know if Lisa Rinna Beauty tanked, but I haven't really heard anybody speaking on it. I haven't really seen anybody wearing Lisa Rinna Beauty, so I'm just assuming it didn't do too well, right? And that's somebody that already has like a reputation, right? Like everybody knows, if you watch The Housewives, you know who Lisa Rinna is. So it's like even when you're known, it could still be difficult, right? So to sink all that money in money that you don't really have is, yeah, not too smart at all. But at the end of the day, I'm rooting for her. I don't wish for it to fail. I hope it does work out and it's, a hit and I'm proven wrong and yada, 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 right? But her husband did bring up like great points. Like, there is a big age gap between the both of them, and it seems like one I'm not sure if they do say that's Whitney's daughter, right? I don't know if that's her stepdaughter or if that's like her biological daughter. I'm not too sure, but they do have a young one. I am pretty sure he has children outside of his relationship with Whitney. And like he said, he also wants to make sure that Whitney is taken care of as well, which is very admirable. Blah, 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 blah. It's nice, okay? It's really nice that he's thinking about, making sure that she's secure in case, I mean, and statistically speaking, realistically, that when he passes, that she is good, right? So tying up his money into it can not only, it's not only affecting her, it's not only going to be her ego, it's going to affect him, it's going to affect their children and his children. It's a lot, but if she, I don't know how much they get paid at this point. Do you guys think they get paid like 100K per season? Are they at that point yet? Right? So I don't know. Like if she stays on the show for a while, and it seems like Salt Lake City is definitely picking up and is pretty popular, and Whitney definitely is entertaining, and she does have a storyline, and she does stir the mess. So I can definitely see her, staying on for a while. So even if she is to lose a bit of money, as long as she kind of slows down and evaluate and maybe, hold off on certain things at this point, I think she still would be relatively okay financially, hopefully. And I don't really even know what her husband does or how much money he's raking in, but he seems to be doing semi well for himself. So it's not too late. But like I said, I wish her well. Moving on. So Lisa and Meredith, they go horse riding, and Lisa's hilarious. I remember last season, I think they did like car racing or something of the sort, and Lisa was bragging about how she was so good, and then they got on the track and she was like the slowest one there. And then this season, you have Lisa not necessarily bragging, but saying how, she likes to horse ride and she's good at it and she's been riding since she was 4 or something of the sort. And then she gets on the horse and, like, she's struggling. So Lisa's just. I like Lisa. I'm sorry. I do. She's funny to me, right? She's definitely a character. So after they do their little horse riding, her and Meredith have a conversation. And Lisa spoke about Jen. And she said part of the reason why she didn't meet with Jen for brunch is because she felt like Jen hasn't really been a good friend to her, that the friendship has been one sided. And I don't know. That's my experience watching the show. I know we only get to see a limited perspective, but from what I've seen, Lisa interaction with Jen definitely seems one-sided. It seems like Lisa's always going out of her way to understand Jen and to calm Jen down. But I don't really see Jen having that same energy for Lisa. For example, when Lisa's friend, and what happened to Lisa's friend? We haven't heard from her. I forgot her name, so I mean, it is what it is. But when Lisa's friend kind of low key accused her of, having sabotaging her party by getting the catering to pull out, right? And she was having that confrontation. Not that I think that Jen should have got involved, because that whole situation was kind of confusing, but it's just an example of how, like, when that moment happened, and I think that's part of the reason why she called Jen into the situation, was to sort of have some sort of support or some backup, or to have Jen kind of fend for her character and say that she's a good friend. But Jen sort of just stood back there confused and didn't say anything. While Lisa, on the other hand, especially when it came to Jen and Meredith, really went out of her way to get Jen and Meredith to make up. Even when Jen was cursing at Lisa, yelling and screaming and causing a scene. The same thing that happened when Lisa approached Jen about, I guess, the issue that she had with the designer and audio being locked, audio being exposed or whatever, right? I do kind of understand why Jen may have been upset, because you are bringing this up on camera and it does sort of make her look bad. But the way Jen handles things is totally inappropriate to me. She starts yelling and screaming. She's hella disrespectful. I feel like it's not that you can't get offended or you can't get hurt or you can't have an opinion. It's the way you do so. I don't like the way Jen addresses things. She's just super hella disrespectful. So I get why in this moment Lisa's not gonna go out of her way to be buddy buddy with someone that's like an alleged criminal. You know, it's like, okay, when you were potentially in a position of power, you gave me your ass to kiss, right? But now that you're vulnerable and you need my support yet again, you want me to come run to you and listen to you cry and play the victim. Like, so, I mean, I get that, right? I do. And with Jen, I mean, same thing with Heather, that friendship. Like, with all of Jen's friendships, it seems one sided. The only person that I felt like Jen really sort of cared or went out of her way to sort of formulate a friendship with was Meredith. But then she still stabbed Meredith in the back. So like Jen has shown no loyalty to anybody in the group. So it's like, yeah, it would be nice if you would get it, but can you really be surprised if you don't get it? You know what I mean? So Lisa also talks about Heather and Whitney. She's getting annoyed with Heather and Whitney, kind of throwing her under the bus, right? Like I said, Lisa's not innocent, but definitely Heather and Whitney, that is what they're doing. And and Meredith kind of responds by saying, "Look, we are all responsible. You know, I guess last episode things got heated and everybody kind of had a say and blew up, and Mary didn't really get a chance to defend herself or say what she has to say, which I felt like Mary did say what she had to say. And at the end of the day, Mary's not going to admit that she's a cult leader or she's taking advantage of people. And at this point, would anybody really be surprised? Because religious leaders, they have a reputation. It doesn't matter what religion it is. People in a position of power, there are those that utilize it for the benefit of others and they do good, and there are those that abuse it. So I mean, it is what it is with Mary. I do think Mary did get to address it, right? And I don't know, Meredith does seem really concerned with Mary, so maybe there really is a genuine friendship there. But Lisa kind of gets mad because she feels like no one is defending her. And I low key kind of feel like that, right? If Meredith is the only one in the group who really kind of is your longest friend and you really have a genuine friendship, and Meredith is kind of sitting back, I mean, Meredith has more energy for Mary, to be honest. Like, Meredith is defending Mary more than she's defending Lisa. So I understand Lisa feeling type of way, but at the end of the day, Meredith just isn't that person, right? Like, if that's my friend and I know how she is, I know that, like, I would kind of expect that from her. Not that Meredith is trying to throw Lisa under the bus or anything. I think that Meredith is just her own person. It is what it is, and maybe she's looking at Lisa like, you're not innocent yourself. Like, when there's confrontation, you get a bit hyped up too and you take it to a place, right? There's a way that you could communicate better. So it is what it is. I can't really take much of a side when it comes to Lisa, Heather, and Whitney, but I feel like all three of them are playing games. And speaking of Mary a little bit, right? I don't know. Mary, I guess she had someone come over to kind of take stock of all her clothes. She has a lot of clothes, right? And it's not that, and it's kind of low key refreshing, I'm not gonna lie, because it's not that stereotypical walk-in closet setup that you see from the Housewives, aka Heather Dubrow and her like immaculate, organized, color coordinated closet, right? With a ladder. You know, Mary, everything is all chukka chukka, thrown all over the place, it's not really organized, which is relatable because I mean, if I had that many clothes, my setup would probably be looking something like that, to be completely honest with you, right? So it's part of Mary's charm. You know what I mean? She's real. She's not trying to put on too much for you, which I do love about Mary. She's showing you what it is. However, I do, I'm sorry, it's just my personal opinion. I do think it's in poor taste if you are a leader of a church and you have if you're living this extravagant lifestyle and you have a lot of material possessions, I don't know. It's not to say that you can have nice things. You can have nice things. You can have quality clothing. I mean, some people may say that's still inappropriate, but I'm fair. I'm reasonable. I can say, okay, you can have a walk in closet. You can have some designer labels, fine. But it just gets to a point of where it's just like excess. It's too much, right? And I kind of like see that or interpreted that like that's money that maybe could have went into your congregation, especially when you hear stories about like Heather's friend, I mean not Heather's friend, Lisa's friend, right? And I think his name is Carmen. And side note, I know I'm all over the place, right? Lisa's reasoning for inviting Carmen is because he's on the board of foster care in Salt Lake City and whatnot. And if that is true, I mean, it does make sense why he would be at the event. However, I still feel like that scene with Meredith and the Carmen guy was a little bit contrived to me. I'm sorry. It was a little bit, it felt kind of production-y, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I think him being, on the board of whatever, it was sort of kind of killing two birds with one stone. You know what I mean? He had tea and he was related to foster care in Salt Lake City, so it worked out. But whatever, moving on, right? But when we hear from Carmen that he mortgaged his house to support the church, right? And then we're also looking at Mary and all the clothes and designer items that she has. I'm sorry, that doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look good. It's giving me very much Erica Jane, but maybe even a little bit worse. You know what I mean? Now I know that Mary has money outside of the church, like her mother owned businesses outside of the church, so that got passed down to her. But I don't know. It's just it's kind of all sort of messy to me. And I think if you are like a pious or religious person, I don't know. I feel like I'm holding you to a different standard that you shouldn't be too materialistic, right? Especially when you have people in your congregation going without. You have people paying tithes when maybe you don't know if they could barely pay their rent or put food on the table or pay their bills. It's not a good look for me. And then on top of that, you're on Real Housewives. So, whatever. Moving on from that. Um, One last thing. Jenny, we had a scene with Jenny. I guess she's going to have an event at a Vietnamese restaurant, and she took her daughter to kind of test the food, and her daughter is so cute. Jenny's daughter is absolutely adorable. So the next scene is with Jen and her husband, right? And Jen is, doing the usual routine of nobody's here for me and blah, 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 blah. And I'll say this, putting myself in the situation now, let me make this clear. I have never been in a situation that Jen has been in. I've not been accused of any criminal activity or been charged. Knock on wood, I don't plan on that happening ever, right? But I do understand, like a lot of you guys probably understand, that the cliche saying, once you go through something, you get to see who your real friends are, right? And who's really there for you. And it's not it's not in a point the finger blamey kind of victimy kind of way. Now it can be, right? But I think you get to, once you go, like when you're going through a hard time, right? And you find yourself alone, I think what that does, it holds up a mirror, and you have the potential to see what kind of relationships you have fostered with other people, right? So when I went through something, I don't want to go into details. It's nothing dramatic, right? But once I went through something, and no one, yes, there were people around me, but they didn't show up in the way maybe I expected them to, or I thought that they would. It hurt. It did, right? So I get Jen's pain. But through time, I reflected, and looking back at those relationships, I had to ask myself, did I foster the type of relationship in which, you know, did I foster the type of relationships that there was like intimacy there, right? Did I open up to people? Did I let people in, right? Did I communicate my needs? Was I there for other people when they were going through something? Was I a safe space for them to talk about their feelings and what they were going through? You know, did I hold everything in and bottle things up and not communicate? And you just reflect on so many different things, and you do that so that moving forward you can, better, and you can do better, right? And your values change, and you start to kind of really see what is important, right? And you kind of see, like, okay, you with when it comes to more superficial relationships, sure, they can be fun, sure, they can fill up time, but they're not really worth much at the end of the day, right? Having building intimate relationships with other people is really important. And I don't know, I just went on a tangent, and I don't really know if that made any sense, because I'm trying to be sort of elusive with it. But I say this to say, with Jen, I think, because Jen was speaking about her husband, right? Coach Shaw, and she felt like his side of the family wasn't really there for her, right? And I don't, like I said, I don't know Jen. I don't see what's going on behind the scenes. All I can see is what's on camera, right? And from what I've seen of her, I don't really think she treats people in the best way. I don't, you know? So it's hard for me to really be like 100% in, like, okay, you're the victim in this situation. It's really hard for me to do that. And I hope that she takes this time to kind of reflect on her relationships, right? And takes responsibility for her role in those relationships, and that she's not just pointing the finger at everybody else and is playing the victim. You know what I mean? Not to say that she's necessarily the villain or the bad guy in the story, but I don't think she's as innocent as she's trying to portray, you know? And even she says, oh, well, we helped them out, we gave them so much money. And don't get me wrong, providing tangible service for other people, that is important, right? it is, but like, okay, sure, you gave them money, but did you give them emotional support? Did you treat them with respect? When you had conflict, did you go into the situation with the intent of trying to understand the other person and reach a resolution? Or did you yell and scream and cry and, through things because you felt you were right? And, I don't know. From what I've seen of Jen, it's like, ugh. So at the end of the day, I really don't know if she's guilty or not guilty. I hope she's not guilty, right? I don't like Jen. I don't want her on the show, but I don't want her to be guilty. I truly, truly want her to be innocent, right? But I'm not the detective, I'm not the judge, I'm not the juror, so we're going to see how that works out. Cuz part of the main reason why I want her to be innocent because I feel sorry for Coach Shaw. I feel sorry for their children, and their family. Like, that's a sucky situation when you have your partner who's engaged in illegal activity and they may go to jail and they have to obtain a lawyer, and she's saying it's going to cost, like, the retainer fee is like $1.5 million. Like, that's a crazy amount of money. Like, they could very much go into debt paying for the lawyer and everything. Like, that's crazy to me, right? And she could potentially lose her position on the show, right? Which is probably making her decent money. And yeah, Coach Shaw, I mean, I'm pretty sure he makes good money, but like, I don't know if he makes that good enough of money. So, it's really hard. It's really difficult. I do feel sorry for them. I do like his support of her. It was a sweet scene, and it did humanize her a little bit more for me, right? Like I said, I'm rooting for them. I am, because I don't want that for her. I truly don't. But yeah, moving on. Um, so what's her name? Whitney. She has a photo shoot for her beauty line, right? And she invites Jenny, and of course she invites Heather. Um, Jenny mentioned it, and I also agree. Like, I was waiting to see some sort of product, like her holding up a moisturizer bottle or some sort of product to her face, or, doing something, or giving out samples to Heather and Jenny to try. I was expecting something, but I guess maybe she's not there yet with the product and she's just doing the photo shoot, right? But like, how can you do a photo shoot without the product? I guess you can. You could just show, look at my face. I mean, okay, fine, but no comment, right? No comment. But with Heather being there, it did remind me, like, oh my gosh, Heather has the beauty lab, right? So maybe Heather could definitely help her out by carrying Whitney's products at her beauty lab, right? Which seems to be successful. So it pays to have cousins with connections, I guess, right? So we'll see how that works out. Heather, Heather, I'm gonna need you to be careful with the whole her drinking out of the bottle, right? Like, I don't really see it as a big deal, but I know how, like, Bravo can be, and their messy editors. Asked Chris Dillard from Real Housewives of Potomac, okay? How, like, every time he's drinking, they zoom in, and Candace is like, "You're drinking again?" And Mary already brought up her drinking, so I would just be on camera, just be a bit mindful of that, because you know how, like, they like to sort of build up a narrative on you, and then before you know it, you have this reputation that you may not be too much comfortable with. So that's all I gotta say on that. So of course, I guess Heather talks about meeting with Jen, and I don't think Whitney is really there. Whitney and Jen never really got along in the first place. Their relationship was somewhat strained, but I feel like definitely Whitney, from the previews for the next week's episode, it seems like Whitney is going to align with Jen, right? Because she's not really getting along with Lisa and Mary and whatever. So, uh, it is what it is on that, right? And Jenny is new, so I guess she doesn't have too much of an opinion. But I do agree with all of them, or I agree with Heather saying, like, I hope she's innocent. Like, I truly hope she's innocent. So they move on and they start talking about Mary. Now, Whitney says that, and I've been calling this man Carmen, and his name is Cameron, so please forgive me on that. Cameron, right? So Whitney was like, I don't want to just go off of Lisa, right? I called Cameron. I called Cameron and I spoke to him, okay? And he gave me a lot of tea. And if what he says is true, and Lisa knew this, Mary is way worse than what we thought she was. I'm starting to get over Whitney a little bit. I did like Whitney. I'm starting not to like her too much. Now, I still think she's good for the show. I still want her on the show, but she's starting to get on my nerves. One, you are saying that you and Mary are this great you and Mary are great friends. You've known her for so long and your family friends are all that jazz, right? I don't know how big Salt Lake City is, but I don't think it's like huge, right? I find it hard to believe that Whitney didn't hear about what was going on with Mary. Hell, I heard what was going on in Mary, and I'm not even in Salt Lake City. I'm not even in America, and I heard what Mary had going on. So you're not going to tell me, same with Meredith, you guys are not going to tell me you didn't hear anything at all. I'm sorry, I'm not believing that. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, but it feels kind of suspect to me. One, I don't even feel like Whitney and Mary were that much of a friend, and even if they were that much of a friend, I feel like it's very convenient that now all of a sudden you are concerned about what she has going on in her church because you and Mary have some sort of tiff for whatever reason, right? And it is what it is. You're allowed to have your own timing, but it feels a little contrivey. It's giving me a little contrivey, okay? And she also annoyed me when I guess Heather or Jenny asked her, like, well, are you going to talk to Mary about this? And she was like, oh, no, no, this is all Lisa. This is all Lisa. This is Lisa. I don't think she talks like that, but how does she talk? This is all Lisa. It's not me. This is Lisa. Lisa's the one that started this. Lisa, Lisa, Lisa. Okay, fine, right? Lisa did technically start this, but you called the man. You didn't have to go call the man. If you didn't want to get involved, right? If you didn't want it to be on you, you didn't have to go and call him. I mean, you could have just really Googled it. You could have went onto YouTube and typed in Sherelle's World. Sherelle's World Mary, right? You could have typed into Google, oh, what's her name? Ashley, her name is Ashley something. Not Ashley Nicole. I forgot her name, right? It's Ashley something, but I remember her doing an interview with Mary's uncle, right? You could have went onto YouTube and you could have got all the tea, all the information. You didn't need to go and call Cameron and you so it's like you are involving yourself way deeper, right? And instead of taking responsibility about that because you are so concerned, you want to put it all on Lisa and make it seem like, well, Lisa's the one that started this and it's all Lisa, this is all Lisa's fault. And it's more of the same narrative that's really starting to get on my nerves, where they're trying to make Lisa this super villain, right? And I agree with Jenny, like, I don't think Lisa's going around concocting these schemes. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, okay? Let's just be real. This is reality television, right? But still, it's like they're giving Lisa a little too much credit. And it's funny because Whitney and Heather want to say that, you know, Mary treats us like we're in her congregation. Everybody is afraid of Mary. And Jenny is like, we're not in her congregation. We're her friends. Like, why are you afraid? Like, it's like they want to make it seem like, oh, everybody is afraid of Mary. Everybody's scared of Mary. When it's like, no, I don't think everybody is scared of Mary. I think it's just you, Whitney, that's scared of Mary. Like, even when I remember, like, last season, Whitney wanted to confront Jen about something. I guess I forgot what it was about. It's irrelevant at this point. It was when Jen was having, I believe, a birthday party for Coach Shaw where she like threw that glass, right? And Whitney had to get like super duper drunk to confront Jen, right? And Jen is 10 times, 100 times more scary than Mary, to be honest. So it's like it seems like Whitney has an issue with confrontation or whatever, but she loves to be involved in the mess. Like even when she was talking about calling Cameron, she had this slight smirk on her face, you know? It's just like the smirk on her face that she had when they were on the bus going to Vale talking about Jen and her mess. Like you do tell that like Whitney gets a bit of a bit of joy and excitement talking about this stuff, right? But when it comes to the confrontation, it's like I don't know, she can't have it. So she's like, I need Lisa, I need you, Heather, I need you, Jenny, I need Meredith, I need everybody there when I confront Mary. And it's like, okay, sure. I don't know. Like, I'm just over Whitney at this point. I'm over her. And putting everything on Lisa. I'm over Heather putting everything on Lisa. It's just like, take responsibility for your own crap. If you want to be messy, go ahead and be messy. You have every right to be messy, but own it. In Lisa Rinna's words, own it. Don't go put it on Lisa. That's not fair. That's not fair, right? Because Lisa will own her stuff, right? Lisa's not afraid to have that confrontation, right? So don't go adding extra stuff to her. What it is, what it is on that. Overall, this was a really good episode. Like I said last week, it's starting to pick up. We are halfway through, right? But better late than never. So, and next week's episode, it seems like they're all gonna get together, Jen included, so I cannot wait for that. So, that's everything, guys. See ya!